Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. I'm Matt, and I'm here, as always, with my brother, Austin Douglas. How you doing today, man?
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Hello.
Yeah. And on this show, you guys know we talk a lot about cancer. We talk about a lot about childhood cancer. It's been a big cornerstone of a lot of the philanthropy that we do at Impossible Performance, and going up to run the Columbus Marathon last year and raising money for childhood cancer research. And we've highlighted a lot of stories of those who have battled through cancer, both childhood and otherwise. And as brutal and as terrifying as that battle can be, to battle through cancer, there is something out there that can be worse to battle. And a perspective that we've never brought on this show before, and a story that we are very excited to bring you guys, and a phenomenal mother, athlete, and human being in general that we've been really excited to bring each of you since day one, is Natalie Zambori. Natalie Zambori is the mother of a child who has battled cancer. And that journey, that battle, can in many ways be harder than battling cancer itself. And Natalie's coming on today to tell us about her story with her son, Leo, who battled childhood cancer for 3.5 years. And she's going to bring a lot of the good that she learned from it, a lot of the bad that came with it, and her life story and how it's progressed along the way, and how she ultimately was able to lose a significant amount of weight and get into powerlifting, and now being a phenomenal athlete and a strong woman who values strength and is imparting that into her children as well. So Natalie, thank you so much for coming on today. We're very excited to have you here. Honored for you to be a part of this show.
I'm honored to be here, and honored to be around such wonderful people, and I'm excited to be able to kind of share a perspective with people out there. So Thank you so much for having me.
Oh yeah, anytime. Like I say, your story is so important. And we were talking about this at lunch today. It's so important that we get this perspective of the parents, and I think particularly the mothers of children who have battled cancer, because I see it time and again with so many mothers that I've met. You know, it's like you almost get this medical degree by training. And I'm sure you could attest to that for what it's like. Yeah,
that's so true. I'm an art teacher, and so this is not my lane, but it had to become it. And so, you know, I did not know how to read a complete blood count or anything like that. And now it's like forwards, backwards, upside down. I'm good with that kind of stuff. And you learn things that you never thought you'd have to learn, but you do, because you know you're your kid's biggest advocate, and that was something that definitely you just get thrown in the fire, and you do what you can, and you do become really versed in it. And I think people that are just starting out in this journey need to realize, like, you feel like you know nothing, but you will be okay, and you'll get a footing, and then you get to where, okay, I'm navigating this, and I can do this, and you will be able to do it. But I think at first it feels so very overwhelming.
Oh yeah, it absolutely would, because like you say, you don't come from a medical background. But even at lunch today when we were chatting, I heard you using words like titers and talking about lab work looking like leukemia, and it's like it just struck me in my head. It's like, wow, like she could basically perform from a medical perspective in this area with no training except for real world training. And I've seen a lot of mothers kind of go through that process and become that competent with it, because when it's your child, like, you'll do anything to help them get through that.
Absolutely. I mean, other than, and you want to fix it, right? Because moms are the fixers. Yeah. And this was the one time in my life that I couldn't fix it alone, because your kids come to you when something's wrong, and you want to fix it. And this I could not fix. And, you know, other than handing it over to God, and thank God has done amazing things in my life and my children's lives. But thankfully, you learn as you go. And as you learned, you know, what we've picked up along the way, it's like, okay, this is going to help me navigate for him, because your 5-year-old doesn't care about any of the terminology and dosages and timing of meds or things like that. They just want to be a kid. So as a mom or a caregiver, you know, you're going to take that burden and do the best that you can with it. And sometimes you feel like failing too, but when you look back on it all, it's like, okay, we did that. and you'll get through it. And I think people need to hear that too, that, you know, as long as the road may be, you will get through it. And I know, like, when I asked about his treatment, like how long till we fix this, because I just wanted to fix it, and that's all I wanted, was to fix it. And when they said 3.5 years of chemo, I think my jaw, you probably could have picked up my jaw from the floor and put it back on my face, because I'm like, excuse me, you said 3.5 years, and I didn't even know there was a protocol that lasted that long. I was so ignorant to childhood cancer and what came along with it. And they were like, yeah, it's a 3.5 year treatment. And so I was like, okay, let's do this. And off we went from there. So.
It's a crazy feeling, because when you get that diagnosis of cancer and you know that you've got to go through you find out that you've got to go through this 3.5 years of chemo, it's like the last thing you ever want to do, the last thing you ever want to witness your kid go through. But at the same time, it's not that you don't have a choice, but in order to fix it, in order to make it go away, it is the best option that we have, that we know of right now. So you're kind of in this position where you have to do it, more or less. Mm-hmm. What's that feeling like, of just being in that situation of, like, the thing you want to do less than anything else in the world, and still knowing that you have to go on through it?
I think when he was officially diagnosed, when he had a bone marrow biopsy and it was confirmed, so just leading up to that, Leo had, you know, some fatigue and some unexplained, like, he'd fall asleep in the car and then he'd pop right back up, and he had just turned 5 years old, but he stopped napping. And when he was 2, he hadn't taken a nap in years, and it was just odd and I knew something was wrong. I just took him to the doctor for that fatigue, and he had some abnormal labs, but they were just here and there, low white count, low hemoglobin, but nothing critical or anything like that. And like, they chalked it up to a virus and never had us come back for repeat labs. So like 4 months go by, and he's playing soccer, playing baseball, and literally the day before his diagnosis, hit a bucket of baseballs with his dad. And, you know, Chad and I were like, you know, he's still tired here and there, but was complaining about arm pain. And that arm pain was just like, ow, my arm. And, you know, growing up in my family, we would say, it's growing pains. You're fine. Bone's not sticking out or anything. You're okay. You know, suck it up. Yeah, you're good. And so he'd go about his day and be perfectly fine after that. And I think 2 days passed. He had complained about this a couple of times, and my mom had called me and said, hey, I went to put him in the car from preschool, and when I took his hand to put him up in the car, he really guarded that arm and started crying about his arm. So my husband took him over to the pediatrician, and they thought he had nursemaid's elbow. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. So I went over, left school. I'm a teacher. Left school, went over and met them for whatever this arm injury was. And they said, everything looks good on the x-rays. You guys can go. And he had the sucker in his mouth already, like getting ready to leave. And I turned around because it was God said, like, he needs blood work again. And I turned around and I was like, I want labs done again. And they looked at me kind of like I was crazy. And this is another thing I want people to know is if you're a parent and you have a gut feeling, trust your gut. You know, moms know. And I'm not one to send my kids to the doctor for just whatever. Leo is 5 years old, never been on an antibiotic in his life, which is pretty great. because we don't go to the doctor for just colds and things like that. But if you need to, you go. And I said, I want blood work done again. He's still falling asleep in my car. And they kind of were like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I had him here 4 months ago because of this, and it's still happening. So they ran the blood work, and then we left. Leo wasn't real happy about having the sucker and getting blood work drawn. So 8:00 that night, I get a phone call. I had him in the bathtub, and it was our doctor, our pediatrician. And this had been 2 p.m. when we were at the doctor's office, 8:00 at night, and then told me, and it's Dr. So-and-so, and Leo is really, really anemic. He needs blood transfusions right now. Put him in a car and go to, what children's hospital do you want to go to? And I was like, hold on, I got him in the bathtub right now. What are you talking about? And do you want to go to Pittsburgh or do you want to go to Columbus? And because we're kind of in the middle, Columbus is a little bit farther. And we have some doctors that he had already seen at Children's in Pittsburgh, and I was like, we'll go to Children's in Pittsburgh, but do I have time to call my husband? My husband's working a 24-hour shift, and they said, well, call him and get him home right now, and go right now. They're going to be waiting for you. And I just kept thinking, okay, he's anemic, and he doesn't eat a whole lot of meat, and he was actually not eating a whole lot of food, really. Like, he was getting real picky about things. And that, in hindsight, was all part of this. And I was trying to stay positive. I'm like, okay, they're going to figure out why he's so deficient in whatever it is, and it's going to be okay. And so we went with the clothes on our backs, like, up to Pittsburgh, and everything kind of started after that. And we went from, he's anemic and needs blood transfusions to, multiple pokes and prods and everything, x-rays, and an oncologist walking down the hallway at Children's Hospital in that emergency room. And I could see her badges like 3 a.m. And she was a fellow, because those people are the ones that are there at 3 a.m. And I saw oncology on her badge, and I'm like, she's not coming here. And she did. She came in our room, and Leo was sleeping, and she said, your son's blood work has abnormal cells in it, and those, and I said abnormal, and she was like, yeah, there's abnormal cells in his blood. And I was like cancer? And she said, yes, and we don't know what kind, but we're going to send you to the 9th floor. And the 9th floor is our oncology floor. And it's not safe enough for us to do a bone marrow biopsy because he needs multiple blood transfusions before we can even do that. His hemoglobin was so low. It was like 5
my gosh.
When we went in.
And he was still like conscious?
He was hitting a box or hitting a bucket of baseballs, literally, like, with a hemoglobin of 5.
That's unbelievable.
And yeah, because things were going to start shutting down, literally. And I didn't know anything about that at that point. 5 meant nothing to me. Now, and with my childhood cancer mom degree, I would be freaking out about a hemoglobin of 5. I didn't even know how bad that was at the time. And he had like 3 blood transfusions, got him up to like 8. And then they did the procedure for the bone marrow biopsy and called us in and said, it's leukemia. And it's going to take us a few days to tell you what kind of leukemia. It'll be AML or ALL. And they're like, you want ALL. And so we started praying for a certain type of cancer. And I don't think ever in my life, as a mother, my prayers for my children were a prayer for one thing that's less bad than another, but both were bad. And I was like, take me, I'll do anything, and you should not bargain with God. But I was kind of in that spot where I felt like that's what I needed to do. And so we're praying for ALL, and it was ALL. And we're like, okay, good, it's the good kind of leukemia. If you want to call any of them good. But that's what the doctor said was, better. And so he ended up with ALL, and he had B-cell ALL. And that's when we sat around a conference table and were handed a book. And this book was like the COG, the Children's Oncology Group. And it's like the manual for the next 3.5 years of your life. And
was it in like a giant 3-ring binder?
It was a big 3-ring binder.
3 inches. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm like, you were handing me a binder and telling me that this is going to be 3.5 years. And I just remember thinking like, we'll never be able to do this. And in my head, I'm like, this is bad. And they were like, okay, he's going to get a port. And it was just a whirlwind. And we're starting chemo tomorrow. Well, as a mother, you don't want any type of toxic drug going in your kid at all, ever. And you're signing consents that say all these horrible side effects. And I'm sure you know, there's a laundry list of them, and they're bad.
I got most of them.
That was the first time in my life it was like, okay, I have to do this. I don't want to do this, but I have to do this, because the other option is like, they were like, he won't live another 2 weeks like the way that he was. And his bone marrow was 90% cancer cells. So it was just not making any of the good things at that point. And that's why his arm was hurting. The bone marrow was literally like so crowded that he had arm pain because of that. And I'm like, well, where do we need to take him? I'll take him anywhere. Tell me where's the best place to be. And now I know that the treatment for what he has is standard no matter where we go. So that's when they were like, we need to get rolling. We have to like start this. So we signed everything that we didn't want to sign. And he went down and got a central line placed. So he had a port for about 4 years. And immediately after getting that port, they had him up on the oncology floor, and he was getting his first dose of chemo, and woke up getting chemo for the first time. And, God willing, like 3.5 years later, after a really long road, he made it through. And but at that time, it felt like that 3.5 years was going to be like an eternity. Yeah. And there were days in it that felt like years. And then there were times where it's like, wow, we've made it this far. And it's not that bad. But it definitely had its moments of like ups and downs big time as we went. But he smiled through everything. Absolutely everything. And so my rule was, you don't cry in here. You don't come in this room and be sad. The adult, if the child can smile through this pain, then we can all suck it up around him. And so as a mom, that was my mama bear moment, where if you're going to get teary, out. And we did that for him because he was so good through everything. And he lost out on a lot of experience. And even during those things, he battled through. And if you look at him now, you'd never know, which is awesome. It's
been so cool to meet him, because today's the first time I've actually met him. I've heard a lot about him, obviously from you talking about him. And it's so cool to me when I meet these kids that have battled through cancer, because I see that same thing in each of them, that it's strength is what it is.
Right.
And he's, especially for his age, he's incredibly strong for his age and his size. He pulled what would be a national record today in the gym. But not only that, just that like strength of character, strength of spirit, and like the air of confidence around him. Like you don't see that in a lot of kids his age, especially these days. And what's cool is I tell people, especially us being athletes, we're used to seeing these people on stages and in competitions that are incredibly, incredibly strong people, especially physically. But I tell people all the time, I was like, you want to meet some of the strongest people you've ever met in your life, go to a children's oncology floor.
I agree.
Because what you just said there about him smiling through all of it, that is the standard. And that's like what got me through it too. Right. Because I was 18 when I had it. It was a childhood cancer, but I was 18. So I was kind of an adult. I was still in high school, that weird transition point. And I was in this hospital with these kids, and they're all like smiling, running around, you know, like they're being kids.
Right.
I was like, if these kids can go through the same stuff, like I'm not going to let myself trip up here.
I'll never forget Leo. So infusion rooms have multiple beds, multiple chairs, right? And there's curtains, but usually everybody's just hanging out in there. And so here's all the kids. And if you're not accustomed to that, it's probably make you cry if you walked past and looked through the window. But you get used to it, which is sad in this situation. You get used to it. And so he's getting infusion one day, and there were at least 2 babies in arms that were getting treatment. And he was 5. He's my baby. And he said, at least I'm a big boy, Mom. And still to this day, I think about that because he had that perspective as a 5-year-old. And, you know, as adults, we complain about the silliest things sometimes. And it's been a blessing, although it was one of the hardest trials of our life. But we have a perspective now that you don't gain if you haven't been through something like this. And I always think about, you know, when something goes wrong now, it's not a big deal. And, you know, whenever I catch myself thinking like, oh, this is crappy or something's happened, I go back to Leo saying, oh, at least I'm a big boy, Mom. Like, I feel bad for the babies. And he was baby. Yeah. And so that day was kind of marked for me, and kind of a changing point too, mentally for me, because I'm like, he is so strong. And I continued with I wouldn't let myself cry around him. I would not do it. I had a rule that I would give myself a couple minutes in the back of the shower to silently sob, because our house isn't that big, so you can hear people. And I'm like, I give myself a couple minutes, and then I would tell myself, get up, because he gets up. Yeah. And that has transferred to how I live my life now. And I'm thankful for that. And he's taught me that. And this experience has taught me that. And I'll never forget him wanting to do things physically when his body was just wrecked from either steroids and being completely bloated and like just it felt horrible carrying around all this extra water and everything, or emaciated to the point where I could count ribs and vertebrae. But if he felt well enough, like he wanted to go, can we go to the bike trail? Can we go do this? Can I go run around a track? And I said yes, if it was safe for him to do it. And we did, because I feel like that helps them live, because you can't just stop living for 3.5 years. You know, because when it was all said and done, he went through treatment almost longer than he had been alive, which is just crazy to me.
Yeah, it's like that kind of became his new normal.
Yes.
And it became your new normal too.
Yes.
It's amazing to me what the human psyche can learn to define as normal. And I saw that kind of in my own journey where, you know, I'm going up to the hospital between every single treatment with sepsis. And it was just like, oh, this is normal. Like I'll end up on a BiPAP and, you know, I'll get
and it's so
flushed
far,
with antibiotics
it's so
for 2
far
weeks.
from
like,
normal.
Yeah, it's just, you get such a distorted perspective. But, you know, I think that can be taken to any degree. It's kind of like what you talk about, how that moment where he says, at least I'm a big boy. Like, at least he's not a baby. You know, it's like, even having cancer, and you talk about with AML versus ALL, You know that it's cancer. Like somehow in this weird way, you hear that line that it can always be worse, you know?
Yes.
But when you actively live those moments of being in the absolute worst situation you imagine, and then coming to the realization like, oh, there is worse out there. Like,
right.
Those are pretty powerful moments.
And we witnessed that so many times that like we were like, there are families that want to be us right now. And I will never take that for granted either. It was not the worst. It was our worst at the time, and everybody has their own worst too. So I get that. And somebody's worst might be their kid has strep throat today, and I am happy for them that is their worst, because that's a good thing. Yeah. And for a while I was very, I would be so upset when I would hear someone like be like, oh, it's the worst day, so-and-so has the flu. And it would trigger something inside of me. And I've let that go now. And it's just normal human nature to be like, no, it's not the worst. But it's your worst at the time, and that's okay. Like, everybody has their own worst. But yes, the perspective gained when you, walk inside of any children's hospital, any floor too. It's not just oncology. There are so many other things. You will change the way you view things. I believe that. You could sit in the cafeteria for 30 minutes and probably change how you view so much of life if you've never had to experience that.
Yeah. And that's exactly why so much of our messaging and so much of our branding, especially with everything we did with the marathon last year, it's all been so heavily focused on telling these kids like, hey, you can go out and chase your passion and purpose and live out your dreams in life. Like, you are strong, because we can see the strength in these kids, but at least in my personal experience, I know a lot of others of my friends that have gone through this, you don't feel strong when you end that.
Right.
And I know that your story was similar. Like, when the cancer's over, everything should be, happy and exciting and, celebratory, but you don't necessarily feel strong. In a lot of ways, you can feel weak and broken because of what you've just endured. Yet, look at what you were able to endure.
Right.
And there is strength in that. And I can see it in Leo. And I see it in every kid that I meet who's battled through this. And so one of our main goals, we say at Impossible Performance that we're in the business of human potential. And everything we do is in some way or shape or form centered around helping people realize their fullest potential and then be able to move beyond it even. And that's what we mean when we say be impossible. And so we're trying to show these kids like, hey, look how much strength you have.
Right.
Like, yes, like you had to go through this horrible, awful thing, and we'd never wish that on anybody. But rather than approach it from this mindset of like, oh, it's so sad that you had to go through that, we're saying, no, look at what you gained from this, not look at what you lost. Look at what you gained.
We say that all the time too, because when Leo faces something, and it could be athletically or academically, he does phenomenally in school. He's taken a high school algebra class as a 7th grader. And it's after having chemo put around his brain so many times. And he is very hard-headed. And I get it, because he has control back over his life. So if he can control it, or he can make himself better at something, he is adamant about that. And I understand, because he had no control over what happened to him. And that whole treatment, he didn't have any control over it either. It needed to be done. You're going to take this medicine no matter what, and that kind of a thing. And then to see what it's doing in his life now, I'm like, you are built for this. God has placed this purpose on your life. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like at the, as you get older, but we talk about it all the time, because he has been blessed with this survivorship that he's entering. And now he's taking everything that he has endured, and he's like, it's nothing. Like, this is nothing. I can do it. And I see that in him, and it gives me motivation to try to be great because he's so great. And I just, he's my reason. He's my why every day that I do what I do. And he's been my why since the day he's been born, just like Nolan, my oldest, because your kids are your why. And, you know, he has really shown me what it is to fight, and not only fight, but like fight with like grace, and the way that he did it, and the way that he continues to do it, because he's got some after effects of things here and there, but he never uses it as a cop out. Like he's never making excuses for anything, and I'm just so proud of that. I'm so excited to see what he's going to do. And I don't know what it'll be, but I know it's going to be something great.
I imagine there's probably not much of a better feeling out there than when you learn something from your child.
Yes. And, you know, like you were saying, you know, at the end of everything, you're supposed to be happy and up, and he was totally like, he was done. He was like, yeah, I'm done, ring the bell. And we're having we had a huge end of chemo party with bounce houses and all kinds of stuff, and it was fun, all his buddies, and I celebrated and I was happy. But that is when I felt at my lowest, and I became depressed, because it's like, okay, my purpose, I felt like during his treatment, was I will do everything in my power. I'll cut my arm off. I will do whatever you want. Like, I'll do anything for my kid to get better. And so if that meant setting a bunch of alarms, if that to give him chemo, if that meant, anything, dosing, filling that monthly pill box with gloves on and a mask, cutting chemo pills and everything to know exactly what dosages he got. Like, you do it. And that was my purpose. My purpose was I am going to do absolutely everything exactly right so that we have the best chance. He has the best chance to get through this. And I was so driven by that. And then it was done. And it was like, what do I do now? I feel like I'm doing nothing, and I'm just allowing it to come back. And I know that isn't the right way to view it, but that's what my mind was saying. And I was very depressed and allowed myself to feel the trauma of the past 3 years at that point, because during those 3 years, I just was like, nope, we're going to bury that deep down and it's not coming up. And it all kind of came flooding back. And you know, the one day that stands out in my mind is the day that he was life flighted, that I told you about at lunch earlier. And he had this toxic reaction to chemo around his brain. And I really thought he was dying that day. And, you know, you're holding your kid in your arms and you think you got a hold on this situation, and we're settling in and we're navigating it. And I'm like, okay, we can do this. And because we had been 6 months into his diagnosis at that point, and you just feel like you're hitting your stride and you're like, we're going to be okay. And then I'm in a medical helicopter, and and on the way to the hospital, I'm holding him in my arms and thinking, you know, he's never going to hear my voice again. And that day comes flooding back to me a lot. And thankfully, when we got to Children's, they were like, you know, this is toxicity to a chemo, and he's going to be okay, Mom. And that wasn't the original information we got when, you know, we got to the local hospital. And he did recover from that, and it took a while, but he recovered from that. And I never left again after that. And, you know, you find other ways to cope with things, and my way was I'm gonna eat. And I tell people, I'm like, I ate my way through his cancer treatment, and I did. That's how I coped. And when everything was done, my body had really taken a hit because I never left. Because the one day that I did leave, I went to go jog, and that's the day that he was life flighted. And I was like, oh, I'm so selfish for doing that. And that's not true looking back.
But you felt it at the time.
But I felt it at the time, and I want other people that are caregivers to know you have to take care of yourself, because I ended up in an emergency room at one point. Tachycardia, my stress levels were through the roof. I was surviving on caffeine and no sleep, and I was overweight, and they're like, you have got to like get it together. And I remember when my heart's racing and I'm just literally sitting there, and they're like, do you feel your heart racing? And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm hooked up to a monitor, and they're like, it's beating pretty fast, and then I had like some double vision, and I was very concerned about that. And I remember telling the emergency room doctor, who probably was like, what is happening? Because she didn't know any context for any of this. And I'm like, I cannot die today. And she was like, that's not the plan. But I'm like, I can die after June 9th of 2019. And that was my son's end of treatment date. And she was like, what is going on? And my husband said, that's when our son finishes treatment for cancer. And she's like, this is making a lot more sense now. Because I was like, I have to be around to do this. Like, I have to be around to do this. And we made it through everything. But at the end, I definitely physically was not in good shape. Mentally, I was in a really dark place. And as I said before, like, I would have that 3 a.m. alarm to give him chemo every day for 3.5 years. And I said, okay, I'll go back to the gym after he rings the bell. And I went the next day. And then the reason I wake up at 3 a.m. every day now is because that just has flipped that 3 a.m. alarm. So it used to be in my phone, it said Leo chemo 3 a.m. And I have changed that, and it's gone, and now it's train. And so it's been a blessing to wake up at 3 a.m. and take something that was I can't believe I'm giving my kid chemo at 3 o'clock in the morning every day. My 5-year-old chemo, like my 6-year-old, my 7-year-old chemo, to turn it into, wow, you get to go do this every single day. And literally doing that has changed my life. God has opened so many amazing doors through all of this. And the cool thing is I get to share it with them. Not at 3 a.m.
They don't want to wake up at 3 a.m. and go train with you?
I don't think I want them to either. That's my time.
Yeah. Oh, I love that like early morning. That's when I wake up at like 4:30, but that's when I work on editing, work on the business, things like that. And it's just like, it's always one of the best parts of my day, because it's just quiet.
Yes.
And like you can just be alone in solitude and get whatever you need to get done. And there's no interruptions. There's no outside. It's just like, it's meditative is really what it is.
Yes. And that time is, for me, as a mother that wants to be competitive at this, it's not interrupted, which is wonderful. Because then I don't miss anything. There's no baseball games or anything like that. Like, nobody's playing baseball at 4 a.m. And it allows you to be a mom the rest of the day when you need to be. And that's what's cool about it, is because we're of the mind that, and kind of like what you just talked about, we're of the mind that you can't possibly serve somebody to the best of your capabilities if you're not locked away, squared away yourself. Right.
From like mental, physical, emotional, spiritual perspective.
Right.
The more like locked in, squared away, good to go you are, the more you can serve other people to your highest capacity.
Absolutely.
And so as hard as it can be, as you know, you have to prioritize that time. You have to prioritize your own health. You have to prioritize your own mental health, your own sanity, your own wellness, or else you won't be able to serve others to your highest capacity. And so by taking that time in the morning, you're allowing yourself to be a priority, so that when you step in to the mom role, you know, when your kids wake up, you got baseball games, you don't have to think about training because it's already done.
It's done.
You're not thinking about, oh, I got to try to fit in deadlifts later. It's done.
Right.
You know, you can focus 100% on being a mom. And I think that's incredible practice. I got a lot of respect for you for getting up at 3 because when I get up at 4:30, like, you know, that feels early enough sometimes, but 3 o'clock's a whole different ballgame.
It's been so therapeutic for me in so many ways. And like I said, you do have, I give myself a little bit of time, spend it with God. And then, you know, I'm just so very thankful for like I said, just this blessing in my life that it was not on my radar, right? When I went back to the gym, it was like, I just need to lose some weight and not walk up a hill and feel like I'm going to die. 'Cause that's really where I was. I was about 205 pounds and I'm 5'1", and that was the heaviest I've ever been. And I was just very physically out of shape. I was a college athlete. My whole life I've been pretty fit, and it was a struggle. And the first thing was like, I just needed to move. I needed to like start. And I felt such a good release with that. And then came this like, okay, like lifting heavy, and I'm like, this is helping me so much mentally. And then came like competing, and I'm sure there's people that are like, why is she doing that? I do it because I love it. I love having a date on the calendar. I love going to a meet. I love the people like you guys, like you meet through this sport. And we talked about it earlier. Like it's about you and your improving yourself more than anything. And, you know, yes, I'm an art teacher. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I'm a power lifter. And it's pretty cool. Like,
I love that.
You know,
I love that.
And I'm an artist. I'm an art, you know, an artist and an art teacher. And I love being able to be all of those things. And being able to be all of those things has been just such a gift to me. And I want to share that with other girls so that they know, like, you can do so many things. And I also want other mothers that are in this situation with their kids, that are like caring for kids with any medical needs, that they need to know, like, don't do what I did and suppress things for 3.5 years. It will lead to not good things happening. Talk to someone. You know, you might think, I don't need to talk to anybody. I got this. And I tried to do that. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be the strong one. And then you just, like anything, you carry it for so long, foundations are going to start cracking. And for everybody, that comes at a different time. But I just hope people will hear, like, I did not do that the best way. I did it the best way I could at the time. But looking back and having that hindsight, I want people to be able to know, like, you can ask for help. And I don't know if there's a ton of support for caregivers or moms and dads. I really don't think there is, because we don't want to ask for it either. We're worried about our kids. We're not worried about us. We would rather it be us than them. And we just want them to be okay. So you just completely ignore anything you're feeling. But if that was made more of a resource for people, I think that would be helpful, especially for parents that are in this for a long time. Because anything you do for years is going to wear after a while. So,
and that's a really interesting topic that, for the future of our company, I think is something that we're going to be touching on a lot. Is in my time at Cleveland, you would see signs for it, like off to the side. Oh, hey, we have, you know, if you're a caregiver, you know, contact this phone number. get sent here, and then maybe you can get, you know, something offered here or through here. But it was never ever discussed during the meetings, because my mother went with me to all of my treatment appointments, all the doctor's appointments, of course, or oncologist appointments. And, you know, not that it's on them, but it wasn't within the part of the treatment of them going, oh, hey, mother, or how are you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, would you like a snack? Yeah, that came up a lot. But I mean, what?
Right.
What such a, you know, intrusive and helpful question that is. So I certainly agree that is that's something that needs to be really looked at, and really somebody needs to dive into that hard. And I think we should be a part of that.
Yeah, it really is something that's not brought up, because you hear there's like Relay for Life, there's all these fundraisers, there's everything out there to try to help the cancer patients. Mm-hmm. And one reason we've targeted pediatric cancer is our group to help so heavily is because they actually are highly underrepresented as far as funding goes, and awareness and advocacy. But you're exactly right. Even more than that, it's the caregivers and especially the parents that are very much underrepresented. There's not enough resources, and they're kind of left to the side. And like you said, I think it's partly because you don't feel like you want the help, or you don't feel like you want the attention or the focus. You want everything to be on your child in that moment. But like we talked about as well, you know, if you're not able to keep yourself in a good, healthy spot, you're not going to be the best you can to be able to help your child in some cases. And so there's this balance, I think, of you've got to take care of yourself so that you can be there for your child. But I think if there were more resources, more anything available to help you with that, or even just like education to like let you know, hey, you might feel this way. Right. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. But here's how we can kind of get ahead of some of the negatives from it.
And talking to other mothers. Helped me so very much. And I want to be that for anyone that needs help. Message me. I will help any way I can, because if it wasn't for the mothers I met through this that were ahead of us in treatment, I don't know how well I would have I wouldn't have navigated this as well as I did without them. I will never forget one day, and we were on the 9th floor is the children's oncology floor at UPMC Pittsburgh. And so you're on the top floor. And we were up on the 9th, and we were waiting. We were looking down in the atrium. There's big glass windows. And the 6th floor has like an indoor playground. If you're healthy enough, you can go down there. A lot of times the kids on the oncology floor can't go down there because there's other kids down there, and you can't go if you're compromised or whatever. But we were looking down, and Leo was bald. He was in the most intense phase of treatment, and he had a superhero cape on and a Superman shirt.
Heck yeah.
And a pair of like high top Jordans. I can like vividly picture this. And he had his IV pole attached to his port shirt, which whoever made port shirts is an amazing person. They had the little zipper, because for the longest time he would not wear a shirt.
Oh, really?
Yes. If his port was accessed, it was suns out, guns out all the time. No shirt.
Gotta show off those muscles.
No shirt ever. Because he didn't want anything touching it. So the port shirt helped us a lot. And we're standing there, and a mother with a little girl that had a bow in her hair was getting on the elevator, and she stopped the door, and she came back out, and she was like, I want you to look at her. And I looked at her, and she said, you're going to be here. We just went into survivorship. And like God sent that woman at that time to say that to me, because we were struggling. I mean, it was hard. Leo was throwing up all the time. He wasn't eating anything. It was a rough part of treatment. And I'm like, thank you, Lord, for sending that woman. I mean, she was getting on the elevator, and she turned around and said, look at her, you're going to be there. And now in June, Leo will enter survivorship. And it's amazing. And there were a lot of godsends along the way, and I'm so very thankful for that. But if it wasn't for those women that I could talk to about their experience, you feel like you're on an island all by yourself, because there's nobody else around you that is dealing with this right now, because it is rare. And then once you're in it, you realize how not rare it is, because you're in this like society that you never wanted to be a part of, but now you're in it, and it's an honorary cancer parent society that you're a part of. And it's a close-knit group of people that take care of each other. And it's kind of like powerlifters. Like everybody's like, oh, I'm a powerlifter, you're a powerlifter. It's this like group of people that have this common thing. And so they're going to look out for each other. And we need more of that. And I just never forget that happening. But I'm like, man, I hope this happens for other people. And I want to be that for others too. And I want other kids to be like, oh, look, he did what you did. Just like Leo looks at you and thinks like, okay, he went through cancer, and I can do these things, and I can do the impossible. Like, and I mean, he sees that. And so now being able to show him older survivors just is like a blessing too. So thank you for being that, because
no, it's my honor, because I feel like we bring this up on every single episode, but there's this quote out there that we both just love, and it's one of the cornerstones of what we do. And they say the meaning of life is to become the person that you needed at your darkest hour.
Yes.
And then give that to the world. And so ever since I heard that, I'm like, that's it. Like, that's it right there. Like, right. I need to be the person that I needed most when I was in the very worst part of my life. And then if I can give that to just one other kid, that makes my whole life worth it.
I love that.
And yeah, it's such a profound point, I think, mm-hmm. because, and you could say the same thing for your life. Like, right. You can be that for other mothers. That mom right. that told you to, look at her little girl and like, you're going to be here someday. Right. You can now be that mom for other people.
Absolutely. And that's what I want.
Yeah. Archie's entered the room.
Hello.
Oh wow. It's your story is so powerful on so many levels. It really is. And I think there's a lot to capture here. And I think just by telling it, you're able to help a lot of people who either are going through this or have gone through this in the past, because as you know, this is something that you don't get over easily, and you don't get over it quickly. And it's something you maybe never really totally move on from. You just learn to live with it in the best way possible, and learn to make and find as much good in it as possible. Because as hard as it is, that there is good there. There
is. And that, I think the farther out you get from it, the more clarity you have looking back and saying like, wow, that was a miracle right there. And that person was such a blessing. And look what you made it through right there. And we've gone over those things so many times. And even as a couple, my husband and I were like, okay, we make it through this, we make it through anything, because it is so very hard on parents together. As a spouse, like caring for a child that has critical needs. And I mean, I'm sure the statistics show like there's like divorce rates that are really, really high, and like everything, like I guarantee it, because you're hurting so bad. And the person that you're going to take it out on the most is the person that, is like not going to go anywhere. And we would say that all the time to each other. We make it through this, we make it through anything. And we both had our different ways of dealing with everything. And, mine was, I'm going to bury it all deep down. And, if Chad would get upset, I'm like, we are not crying here. We're not getting upset. and we helped balance each other out. And he was the fun. And I knew every drug name. I knew every dosage. I knew every timing. But we needed the fun just as much as we needed me to do that. And it worked. And so now that I'm thinking back about that, it's like, man, we did that together. Because he might mess up if you ask him, oh, what chemos did your son get? And he'll name some of them off, but he might miss a couple here and there. But that was my lane, and I did that. And his was to be silly and goofy and throwing people up in the air and and me going, someone's going to get hurt. Because we needed both of those things. And so we made it through that way with all that stress added to, your life. Because life's hard normally, and then you add this on top of it. And so we say that all the time. We're like, we made it through the darkest days, and we were intact at the end. And I think other parents need to hear that too, because, it is hard, and you will be snapping at each other because you're just mad. Or at least I was. Yeah. He was more at the beginning when it all happened. Everybody handles things differently. And it's almost like stages of grief. Like when your kid is diagnosed with cancer. I feel like it was. I went through the rage, wanted to burn the world down part for a long time. My husband was sad. And I just was angry. Like, why? And I won't know why. And that's okay. And I'm okay with that now. But I was not okay with it at the beginning. I wanted to Aaron Brockovich someone. I was thinking about everything I ate while I was pregnant and how I never ate anything that wasn't, a whole food or organic. And I'm I was just thinking of all of these things, and I wanted a why, and there is no why. Bad things just happen. And, now I've let that anger go, and I deal with it in the morning when I lift.
Sometimes you can use that anger to, help fuel some positive things in your life.
And, there's not many times now that I am angry. I'm not angry about it anymore. I've let that go, and I'm thankful that God has healed that. But it's more about using every day. So my thing is every day is a gift. And I'll say it a lot, every day is a gift. I woke up today and I can physically move. So there is no reason for me to not go to the gym. And I truly feel that every day. And I love it, because there were so many days that Leo would cry because he physically could not go to school, but he wanted to go to school, but he was not able to go to school. And, now as a teacher, I'm like, you are so blessed to be here to the kids, because I had a child that cried for a year because he missed kindergarten because he physically could not go. And they need to hear that too. Perspective is everything. And, and I truly don't ever feel like I don't want to get up and do something now, because you see those kids on the oncology floor that they're missing a prom. They're missing a baseball game. They're missing this. Childhood cancer steals stuff from them. And there's nothing stealing anything from me right now. So get up and go. Yeah. And that's kind of been my motto, is just this is a gift. I woke up today and I'm going to use it, because that it literally has been a blessing. And Leo being healthy is such a blessing. I don't want to take any of it for granted. So.
Yeah. And you talk about that situation, which is something I think cancer patients and caregivers and parents and loved ones all go through. It's that question of why. And that question of why can fuel, like you say, the stages of grief. It can fuel anger, it can fuel rage, it can fuel sadness. Like that question can be such an overarching question that, like you say, may never have an answer. One thing that we like to talk about and we cover a lot, and something that's really helped me personally a lot with that question, is just change the mindset of, I'm going to make a why. Mm-hmm. So like now I live my life every day building a why for why I was diagnosed with cancer. Mm-hmm. Like I'm going to try to do so much good from this that it makes it worth it in a weird way. It gives it a why.
Right.
And it helps me a lot. I don't know if maybe it won't be the mindset for everybody, and that's okay if not. But I think when you can, especially when you're a person, kind of like it sounds like you are, you like to have that control, you like to have that structure, you like to be able to take action against something. I think it can kind of give you that drive in the face of the situation, even totally after the fact, because even now today you can still live in a way that like you're making a why, you're making good of that horrible situation. Not that you will ever be glad that it happened, but at least even though it happened in the face of that impossible, you can still do something good.
And Leo and I have talked about this before, and these things have happened and have prepared you for these moments in your life, right? And as you go on in your life, there'll be other moments that you'll be like, I'm going to navigate this like no other. And for me personally, everything you just said, like, hits so close to home, because, I want to go and do something great from something that was considered tragic. And it doesn't have to hold that title of tragedy, because it's triumph. Mm-hmm. And just looking at Leo, no one would ever even know what he went through. Triumph. And seeing him physically succeed is triumph. And everything that I have been able to do by the grace of God, like with lifting and things like that, that's been a triumph for me. And mentally, it has helped me completely change how I feel. And, ever since I've been doing this, I had someone tell me, you really got light in your eyes. And I'm like, it's because I'm happy. Lifting, training brings me that. And so many other things do too, but it just does give me like a joy, and even through pain, because you guys know that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And what I think that comes from is it's from having passion and purpose in life. Mm-hmm. And the hardest points I think you could ever have in life, regardless of the external difficulty you're going through, I think the hardest thing you can ever face in life is when you lose passion and purpose for your life.
Yes.
And I think there's so many people out there that are facing that situation right now, even if they don't have something externally hard, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're just going to a 9-to-5 job and coming home and living the same cycle day in, day out. But maybe they feel like they're lacking something massive. They feel like they're drained. They feel like they have no purpose in life. And I think that's really the hardest place to be, because for me, when I was going through cancer, that was not the hardest part of my life. Mm-hmm. Maybe physically it was, but I had purpose. Every day was to survive.
Yes. And I feel that I had purpose to
help your kids survive.
help Leo. And then that was my darkest time. I felt purposeless, and insert this gift of what I'm doing now, and it gave me that back and allowed it to go into every area of my life, which saved my life.
Yeah, passion pervades. That's why they talk about it like fire. That's why our logos are a heart on fire. That's passion.
Yes,
is what that stands for. And it spreads to every area of your life once you find it. And the key is finding it. And that's not an easy process. But I think literally the process to it is just to start.
Right.
Chase something, chase anything.
Right.
Odds
and then
are you're not going to,
if that's not it, chase the next thing. And, right. Cause I did not start out thinking like, I am going to go be a power lifter.
You didn't roll up your knee sleeves, put on your belt and like start screaming.
No. No. And it's funny because, you know, I have students I've taught for years and they're like, yeah, you're just like a totally different person now. And, they're like, it's crazy because they saw me, you know, before, and then they see me now, and I'm still the same person, but I carry myself a little different, and I'm thankful for that because it just feels good. And you know, I feel a lot lighter as far as like, and not even in terms of weight loss, but I feel a lot lighter just with everything. And the gym does that for me. And that's why like doing it first thing helps me. And it just provides a release that like I don't get from anything else. And it's fun. Like,
yeah. It's, you fuel your number one overarching passion first thing in the day, and it spreads that to everything else you do the rest of the day. That's why I get up and work on the business first thing in the morning.
Right.
Like I could get up and train first thing in the morning, but ultimately training for me is more of like, it's more of like a conduit or it's therapy is what it is.
Right.
It's for me, it is and always will be mental, emotional, and spiritual way more than it is ever physical. And sometimes I'm able to chase some of this impossible through training, but for me it's not my number one passion in life and never will be. For me it's this business, this movement, this message, that is my number one passion in life. So I get up and work on that first thing in the morning, because when I do that, it fuels everything else I do the rest of the day. And
Right.
I think that's what we all have to have. And it doesn't matter what your passion is. Like your number one passion in life can be gardening or chess or whatever it is. There's no passion that's better or worse than another. It's literally about what fuels you, what lights you on fire, like what gives you that lightness, that confidence, that happiness, that joy that you talk about.
The thing that you can be all in about.
Yeah.
And yeah, that can be so many different things for people, but find that thing that just lights you on fire, because when you do, it's like no other. I mean, and for me in my life, it was softball. I was a pitcher, but that ends. And, you know, there's no 40-year-old fast pitch leagues out there.
You can make the first.
Right? I'm good. I'm not going back. My cleats are hung up. But, you know, for me, it was that for a huge chunk of my life. And then you kind of are like, well, I wish I could feel that again. And I feel that same passion in this. And even more so by the relationships I've created with people that are doing the same thing. And it might not even be power lifters, you know. The guys I train with in the morning, you know, are ultra runners, CrossFit and power lifters, and they're all doing the thing that lights them on fire. And I love that, because people just are different when they have that. And you can see it in them, because, you know, like you can just tell when somebody's doing something that is fulfilling that in them. So,
So going back to that scene you described, where you're in this conference room sitting around a table and you've got doctors lined all around that table. You're feeling probably a number of emotions, anger, fear, sadness. They hand you this giant binder and say, this binder is going to be the next 3.5 years of your life. From the perspective of who you are now and everything you've done since then, think about that woman that was handed that binder and told her son had cancer. what would you say to her?
I'd say, I know that this seems dark and insurmountable right now, and it seems impossible, but you will get through this. And some days you'll get through this one day at a time, and some days you'll get through this literally 1 hour at a time, and some days you'll get through this 10 minutes at a time. But you will get through it because you're a mom, and we're made to be strong for our kids. We are inherently made that way. I truly believe it. And I would tell them that because, time as a mother, oh, my kids are growing so fast, right? And you think 3.5 years, well, time stopped for that 3.5 years. You feel like they're babies for 2 seconds. It goes really quick. And then you're given this, well, the next 3.5 years are going to be real rough. Here it is. And time stops. But I would tell her, you're going to get through it. You're going to look back on it, and you're going to see how many things you handled. And you didn't just handle them, you handled them well. And you're going to come out the other end. Because I truly had so much doubt. And as a mom, don't doubt yourself, because you can do it. We do all the things. And I'm not saying that pridefully, but it's true. What do moms do? We handle it. And usually it's multiple things at once that we're handling. And when it comes to this, it seems like, oh my goodness, you just gave me so much more to handle, but you can navigate it, and you're going to get through it, and literally inch your way, and you'll get there. And now it's like, oh my goodness, we are going to be 5 years post-treatment. That's huge. And that 5 years has gone a lot faster than that 3.5. The first year was kind of slow because I was nervous a little bit about that, because, you're getting blood work all the time, checking for relapse and things like that. But as you go on, you're like, this is normal. And this, we're actually kind of normal. And I think that she would need to hear that, because you do think things will never be the same again, and they won't be the same, but they can be better, and they truly are. So
you were made to be strong. You were made to be able to do this, and you will get through this. Mm-hmm. I love that. So speaking of strength, you are also honestly one of the strongest, especially pound for pound powerlifters that I've gotten to meet, which is really, really cool.
Thank you.
When we met in December, it was one of my first big competitions back since my big abdominal injury. And I just remember we met, and then we were both competing. So I think we kind of went off and did our own thing, because we were in very different weight classes. And because I was in one of the highest ones, I think you're in one of the lowest ones. But then it was I'd be getting ready, and it's Natalie Zambori, another national record, and another national record. And every pull, it was so cool watching you deadlift, because it was there was no limit to your deadlift, is what it seemed like.
It felt good that day.
Yeah, everything you went for, you just wedged yourself right into, and you just you pulled it up. It's just it was so cool to see. And again, I always love seeing people who have battled through this, this horrible thing that is cancer, and come out the other side stronger in the face of it. I love to witness that every time I get the opportunity. And just hearing you and your story, and then seeing your physical strength on the platform just got me so fired up, just for you and who you are and everything you stand for. So I know, though, like we talked about, it wasn't necessarily your intention the first day you walked into the gym to fall into become a screaming power lifter. Right. So I know you talk about like this moment after Leo is pronounced in remission and treatment's done. You talk about that being some of the hardest, darkest times. How did you go from there to getting into the gym, finding strength training, and ultimately becoming a really good competitive power lifter?
I said that I would get back to working out when he rang the bell. And so because I said it, I was like, I'm going to do it. And I was so worried. Like, I'm like, I am going to die, but it's going to be okay. But I really won't die. And I went in and made it through a workout. And I remember walking up a hill carrying my little bag chair to my oldest son's baseball game, and people going, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, well, my legs don't work right now, but it'll be okay. I just went to the gym for like the first time in, I don't know, forever. And stuck with it. Didn't miss a day. I have not missed a training session since then.
That's incredible.
And
how many years has that been now?
It will be 5 in June.
So June 9th was was that the last day of treatment, or the day he rang the bell?
That was it. That was like the last chemo pill.
Okay.
So
and it was June 10th that you were in the gym then?
Yep.
June 10th is the anniversary of my amputation.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I think there's a that was
my daughter's due on June 8th.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which is also my dad's birthday.
Oh my gosh,
it's
that's
just
amazing.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the day, and haven't really missed one. I have not missed one since, and that has, I've been so very fortunate. I've had some injuries along the way, but I've worked around them. Tore my shoulder and had it in a sling, and the next morning I'm dragging a sled with
there you go,
and squatting with safety squat bar and one-handed deadlifts. Why not? So, you know, I think a lot of people may have stayed home after that, but I keep just trying to, I remind myself every day, like, you're blessed to do this. You woke up and you get to do this. And I love that. That has changed in my head. Like there has been a switch that has been flipped, and I'm thankful for that. And there's something that you can do every day. And that's not saying that, like, there haven't been days where it's like you pull a sled and you do GPP and that kind of stuff, but I go and I get it done. And it all has a purpose. But for me, the biggest purpose is, where can this go? Who can it help? Just like being here is just awesome and it has led me here, because I literally went from doing dumbbell workouts to getting under a barbell, and then being so very hesitant to buy a singlet. And I'm like, why do you have to wear a singlet to do this? I didn't know anything about it.
It is kind of a weird thing, and I've heard other people ask that, and I don't think anybody knows. So I think it's something we all do, and nobody knows why we do it.
Right, and now it's like, what cool singlet can I buy for my next meet? But that was like one of my biggest deterrents of like the first meet that I did, was like, I do not want to wear a singlet. I don't want to do that. And I was really heavy, and I had lost about 85 pounds. And I still struggle with seeing myself the way that I used to be, and not the way that I am now. And I work on that with, myself all the time, because I think we're our own worst critic. And then you transform yourself. And I feel like for me, mentally, I've transformed more than physically, but people are like, wow, your physical transformation. And I'm like, oh, it's really not that big of a deal. But I have to remind myself, like, that's not you anymore. You're not what you were. And mentally, I don't feel like that anymore at all. So I need to remind myself, like, physically, I'm not that either. I'm stronger than I've ever been in my life. And my body can literally do things that I've never done before. And that's cool, because I always think about if it's something I haven't done, if I'm about to hit a PR or whatever, like, I did things that I never thought I could get through. So this is nothing. This is a physical task. I can do it, because the mental stuff is harder. And for me, mentally, the hardest thing was literally I was like addicted to food, because instead of turning to alcohol, I turned to food. And I knew that I had to be able to get in a car and take Leo wherever at a moment's notice if he got a fever or whatever like that. And so alcohol was not an option. And I'm thankful that I had the sense about me to realize that. But food made me feel good, or feel something. It made me feel something. And so I literally became like addicted to food. And for me, that transformation has been harder than anything, and having a good relationship with food again and things like that. And I'm proud of that, because it's been a process, and it's a continual process. But as far as in the gym goes, I feel like the physical part is, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not downplaying it like it's easy, because it's not easy, but it's easy compared to that mental. Yeah.
It's just a small reflection, I think, of how grand the mental change is. Like, it's just a byproduct of that mental change is like what you see physically, you know. It's like, because you've changed yourself so much mentally, it's now reflected in so many other areas of your life, including physically. So had you gained a lot or all of this weight like during the years that Leo was battling cancer?
I did. Probably 65 pounds of that 85 pounds was during that 3.5 years. And it's funny, because we have photos like throughout his treatment, and it was that last year heading into the very end was probably the year that I gained the most weight that I can see anyway. I don't even know, because I was like, I'm not getting on a scale. And then
that's the last thing on your mind.
Yeah. And I remember I did get on a scale right before I went back to the gym. And when it said over 200 pounds, I was like, oh boy, I got to do something. I'm 5'1". That's probably not a good thing. And I could just tell by the way I felt. I just didn't feel good anymore, in addition to not feeling good mentally. And so the food thing came later. I just started working out first, and then once I dialed in my nutrition and really got away from all that food that gave me comfort, I really started to like see changes, like big changes. And that fueled me even more, because you're like, okay, there's progress here. And then lifting heavier weights was like, okay, I like doing this. I can see I did this before. Now I can do this. And that led into powerlifting and like I did a deadlift only as like my first meet. I think I pulled like 260. And
that's still probably like double body weight from where you are now, right?
Yeah, I'm about 130 pounds. Yeah. So, and I was probably a little bit heavier than I am now. But yeah, I went and did, it was a real small meet. And after that, competed in my first full meet, which is super like scary, I think, the first time. And now it just feels like this is fun. Like, I can't wait to put the next one on the calendar. Oh, yeah. And I'm sure I'll see you guys again in December here.
Oh yeah,
which would be awesome.
December's always a good one, and it always works well for us because it's like just enough time after marathon training or marathon season to get a very tiny prep in.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that's an easy thing to like. You got this, dude.
I don't know, man.
You got this. Come on.
I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah, you'll be there. You'll be there
someplace else
in spirit while you're deadlifting. But yeah, I think it's easy when you're going through anything in life, anything, especially like the most traumatic, difficult thing that you've ever gone through. It's just human nature to look for, any level of relief, any level of comfort, anywhere you can find it.
Right.
And so I think it's totally like natural that you would have gone that route. And I think too, like you say, like you had the wherewithal to know like, hey, I can't let myself turn to alcohol.
Right.
Like, and I can't even say that like, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about it, but like that woman that you were when your son was diagnosed with cancer, you can't even say she's wrong for having turned to food, because you were doing what you could to survive. You're in survival mode in those days, and you're in survival mode for your kid.
Right. I agree with you there. I say that. I'll be like, I ate my way through his diagnosis and treatment, and that is how I survived. I'm not mad at myself for that. I'm not, because there are worse ways I could have handled it. And I know what those ways were because they did play in my mind. And I was very thankful for the education I have and intelligence that said, like, that's absolutely, we're not doing that. And so I don't drink ever anymore. That was literally when that thought went through my head. I was like, I'll never drink again. And I don't miss it. I socially drank before, but I do not miss it at all. It just didn't serve my life with anything good. Even in social situations, it really didn't, and it could have been a door and a path that would have ended in utter destruction. And so I'm very thankful that I've closed that door and it's no longer going to be opened ever. But I don't get mad at myself for the way I handled it, because I'm at peace with the fact that like I handled it the best that I could, and I handled it with the knowledge and information that I had at the time, and I handled it in a way that kept me afloat. And did that have a negative impact on my health? Yes. I'm very thankful that I was able to turn that around, and gaining some weight, you can turn it around. And I also think, there's these little things like everything happens for a reason. Sometimes that makes you mad as a parent when your kid gets cancer and people tell you everything happens for a reason. Listen, when I told you I was like ready to burn the world down, when people came at me with that, don't say that to anybody, please. It comes with good intention. They're not trying to hurt you. But if you're like me and you're angry, it hurts so bad because you're like, what do you mean? Like, there is no reason. Well, now I know there is reasons for these things, as far as like, Leo will make a beautiful reason that this has happened. He'll make something from it. And, there's a reason that I ate my way through his cancer treatment, because if I wasn't 85 pounds overweight, I probably wouldn't have had that. Like, yeah, you got to do something. It literally was a wake-up call. You got to do something. And I wouldn't be where I am today if that wouldn't have happened. So I'm not mad at myself for handling it that way. And I think that's another thing that caregivers and parents need to hear, is that you handled it the best that you could at the time, and not beat themselves up about, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. Because we all look back, hindsight's 2020. Like, Yeah, I could have not went to the Starbucks that's 24 hours in the hospital and not got coffee. I got all the desserts in the cake. I could have not done that, multiple times when I'm waiting for lab results to come back at 2:00 in the morning. But you know what? It's okay. Like, it didn't hurt anybody. And here we are on the other side of it, and something beautiful came out of it. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. You may never have become a power lifter.
Right.
Had you not done that.
No, I know. I'm like, what would I be doing? Because I really think I would not have done this if it wasn't for that. Oh my goodness. You're over 200 pounds. You better go to the gym. You better do something. And that led to all of this, which has been just remarkable. And it was something I needed in my life. And
I think it's so good to be able to give yourself that level of grace. Mm-hmm. Like you just said a little bit ago, like what you would have said to that woman who got handed that binder. Like you would have told her that she's strong. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so good to view yourself that way. Even if you weren't maybe looking back happy with, who you were physically at the mm-hmm. time, there's still strength there. And I think it's good to give yourself that grace and just love that person for who they were, and especially for who they were going to become.
Right. And I think we all go through transformative times in our lives. And I'm thankful for the way my mindset has changed. But I look back at pictures of me when I was overweight. I'm holding my bald child who was throwing up all night long, and that woman was strong. That woman was so very strong. I just lacked the confidence to put it into practice in other areas of my life. And now I look back and it's it's who you are. You are strong. You did this. And so now I know that about myself. And I don't want to sound cocky saying that, because I think knowing your strength can go so very far in transforming your life. And knowing that your strength as a mother is like a superpower. And if you can do those things as a mom, all the other stuff can come, whatever it is that you want. I don't care what it is. And that's how I feel when I apply it to what I'm doing, anything athletically like that.
No, I love that perspective. And what I think is cool about that is it allows you to live your life every day now almost in honor of that person you used to be. So that in a way, if that person you used to be back then, so thinking back to when Leo's going through treatment, mm-hmm. if she had known who you would become now, she probably would have been pretty excited.
Right. Yeah. She would be so proud.
Yeah.
And she would probably be like, no, you're joking. That is not us. What is happening right now? And she wouldn't have believed it. And I think I posted something about, it was a 4-year transformation, 3-year transformation, something like that. And I said, the woman on the left would be so very much in awe of the woman on the right, because the woman on the left lacked the confidence to know that she could become the woman on the right. And it was in me the whole time, obviously. But the gym has allowed me to apply it every day. And when you apply it every day, you're able to wear that. Not in a flashy way. It doesn't have to be like that. But there's a difference between having your head up with your eyes up and carrying yourself with confidence rather than looking at the floor in that dark place that you were in. And that's the main difference between who I was and who I am now. And that's through that daily discipline and that daily practice, because you know how it is when if you don't go in with confidence, like today, the double that you hit, like if you don't go in with confidence, you're not doing that. And you're not going to go and you're not going to bury it and you're not be like, oh, I'll get it for 1. No, I'm getting it for 2. And that daily discipline just, I think it like exudes into all areas of your life in a beautiful way if you let it. And I'm thankful for that. Even being able to talk about it like this, I would have never been able to do that before. And so I'm glad that I have that now.
Yeah, there's a common thread out there amongst a lot of the great minds of today. You know, Jordan Peterson, David Goggins, Alex Hormozi talks about it a lot. And it's this idea that, because I think we're in a society today where there's a lot of people who lack confidence in themselves. And these guys always say, you know, the best way to build confidence is by building competence. So establishing this regular practice, whatever it may be, that you're doing something tangible that you can be proud of.
Yes.
Again, it can be anything. It can be training. It can be art, which we'll talk about later. You know, it can be business. It can be school. It can be anything. But engage in this daily practice where you get the opportunity to do something you're proud of and do something where you're building or growing a skill, building or growing competence.
Yes.
Because when you hit a new PR in the gym, you're going to be proud of yourself for that.
Right.
And when you do that, you're going to say, well, if I can do this, then I can do this other thing. And that literally is confidence.
Right.
And I just think it's so cool. Alex Hormozi specifically says, he's like, you don't build confidence by shouting affirmations in the mirror.
Right.
You build it by creating an undeniable stack of proof that you are exactly who you say you are.
Yes.
And I just love that quote so much. It sounds a little aggressive, I think, but I love the meaning behind it, because it's like, yeah, you don't even necessarily have to believe in yourself right out the gate to build confidence, because if you do physical, tangible things, if you make improvements in a skill, that is going to become confidence. Like you can't help but do that once you compound that over enough time. And that's why we are constantly, consistently chasing the impossible. We say we're in constant pursuit of the impossible. That's in our vision, which we read at the end of every episode. And the reason we say that is for that very reason you bring up, that we want to be constantly chasing these impossible things so that we can be impossible in the face of them and we can do the impossible. Because if we keep doing that, well, I mean, we're not going to get up and do that every single day.
Right.
But if we keep doing that continually, compounded over time, it's going to allow us to have the confidence and the competence to do more, greater and greater things.
Yes.
Face higher and higher levels of impossible. And so, like, when I go for that 385 for a double today, I've never squatted 385 for 1, like ever. My PR before was from December, the 381. Now I was in wraps today, so that definitely changes things. But as far as just the weight on your back at the top, like, I've never done that for a single, let alone a double. And then I unrack it, and to my own fault, the bar starts rolling down my shoulders, and then, you know, it's like you get off balance and the guys are trying to catch it and stuff. It's just a big whole scenario, and you expend a lot of energy.
You did.
Lot of energy.
I was there. Yeah. I watched that, and I'm like, he's taking it again. Like, and you know, and you had those wraps on for a long time.
Yeah. And they were not loose.
Also, like, no. I'm still wrapping my mind around you wrapping with a prosthetic leg. Like, that is...
Yeah, we don't really understand it either, but just going with it.
But you can't just wrap one. So
yeah,
like, I
exactly,
get it.
Exactly.
But you had those wraps on for a long time, and I can't imagine, like, getting off balance with a prosthetic leg. I mean, it's hard when I'm on 2 legs. So I watched that. And then I watched you get back under the bar, and I'm like, oh, he's taking it. And I thought you were just going to take a single, and you hit it for 2 to depth that I've never seen you, like, hit because of, man, you buried it. And that's impressive too. I'm just in awe of what you do.
Well, you want to know what was going through my head the entire time, from like this point I start dropping it to the point we get it re-racked, to the point I'm like recovering, and then I go back and I hit the double and I do the first rep and I say, no, I'm going for second. The thing that was going through my brain the entire time is, Leo is not going to watch me fail this.
I love it.
Because he is the kid that I used to be in a lot of ways. Right. Or, he was that kid that went through cancer. And like my whole life's purpose and goal and mission is to show people like him, people like who I used to be when I was in one of my hardest time, like, this is the potential that's within you.
Right.
And so it's like, this is one of the most special opportunities I could ever have, because I can show him his own potential.
And you have to realize, as a mother, how appreciative I am of you and your platform and what you're doing, because when I met you at the meet for the first time, I actually heard about you at weigh-ins.
Okay.
Because Clayton will talk to me at weigh-ins about you, and he's like, you got to meet him. Like he had cancer and he went through this, and he was like, he was a kid and you were a kid. Like, I know you're 18, but you're a kid.
Yeah, I was in high school. I
you're totally
certainly felt like a kid.
You're totally a kid. And here you are now. You're successful. You're successful in your career. You're successful in life. You're educated and you're doing impossible things. And when I see adults that have gone through this, because it's hard, because I'm at a children's hospital all the time. So I see older kids, but you're an adult, you're a grown man, like, and it's so good for him to see that, because you've gone through it and here you are and you're doing all the things, and that is invaluable to a mother. So thank you for what you do, because it means more than anything. And that's why it's just more confirmation that I'm supposed to be doing this, because it has opened doors. And now Leo is doing things because he sees people like you. I mean, just like today, he loves to lift, and very rarely does he get to pull a single.
It was a special occasion.
Mom's like, fives.
Yeah.
We're going to do fives. And that was awesome, because he wanted to perform for you, and that was cool.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but truthfully, like, the honor is all mine, because that's my why. Like, kids just like Leo, and there's another kid, Sam, he's 11. But honestly, I'll show you a picture. It's kind of wild how similar those two kind of look. Sam had the same type of cancer as me, and he's a runner, and he was in the Columbus Marathon as one of the patient champions last year. And so meeting those kids and seeing those kids, like, they're my why, because if I can do anything to, like, make my whole experience, not just the cancer, but the, like, going into the dark places and getting, into alcoholism after that, if I can do anything to help those kids avoid that and just find their potential from the get-go, like, that's literally my why. Like, that makes everything, that in a weird kind of way, that makes me happy to have gone through what I went through.
Yes.
Because it adds so much purpose.
I totally understand.
Yeah. And so, like kids like Leo, kids like Sam, like, those guys are my heroes. And I say that all the time. I said that all last year, like, and I know he's your hero.
You're a hero, like, to him, though.
Yeah.
You have to realize that.
Yeah.
And that's what, and seeing Tim Pool, like,
yeah, Tim.
And
I knew he'd
I'm like, Leo, he had cancer too.
Yeah.
And he's just like, wow. Like, and just knowing there, you're not the only one going through it. You're not the only one that went through it. And here are people thriving, and Leo's thriving.
Yeah.
But, like, here are people years and years and years and years later, and they are thriving. And that is just so much hope. And everybody needs that. And it's beautiful. So, I mean, today, like, as beautiful as a bunch of powerlifters can be squatting, which to most people, they would come in there and be like, nothing beautiful about this. But
certainly is an acquired taste.
But to me and to him, I know the story behind everything, and that's beautiful. It was awesome. So you guys are a blessing. Like, you please know that and own that, because he's looking at you. These kids are looking at you, and that is huge for them, because you guys are a small group of people. Right? It's that, just like the parents, that's a club that you never wanted to be in, but here you are, and you wear that badge with honor now, because you all survived it. You all went through it, and you all have that connection of what it took to get through that. And even though he's just turned 13, he processes that like pretty deeply, and we have more. It's funny how you get older, you process it differently, and we continue to have the same conversation, but it changes as he gets older, and you realize a lot more of like, boy, that was kind of a bad thing. Because when you're 5, you don't think about, I have a life-threatening illness. I'm getting toxic drugs that can completely like change my life. I could have side effects for the rest of my life. But then as you get older, you process that differently. And I feel like we'll go through that more and more as he gets older and older. But that aside, he's looking at you now, and that stuff doesn't matter. And that's really cool. So thank you.
Well, that's our whole purpose, our whole mission, and personally my meaning for life is just that, because that's what I needed so bad when I came off of therapy. And so if I can give that, I can't go back and give that to myself,
Right.
Time's moved on, what's done is done, and that's okay. But if I can give that to kids today, like that, there's nothing better than that.
It's awesome.
It's just everything we live for. So no, I appreciate you coming up here. I appreciate you bringing Leo today, getting to meet him. He is, I just love the look I see in his eyes. And like, you can tell the emotional maturity, the mental maturity, the way he's analyzing so many things. That's what I get so fired. Like, you can tell his brain is working on everything he sees. And honestly, I was impressed by him smashing those wings today and getting the steak down. Like he's not necessarily a big kid. He's a strong kid, but he's not necessarily big. But man, he can eat good.
He's like, I just want to be over 90 pounds, and he's on oncology checkups, and they're like 89. It's like, I'm so close. But it brings me joy when he eats, because we went through such a stretch of not eating, and then I don't know if it happened to you, but his taste changed, and like things he loved tasted terrible and are very diverse, that as a mother, you work so very hard to like, look, my kid eats everything. And I did that, and then cancer, and that was out the window. Like, he didn't want to eat anything. Everything tasted metallic, and it just wasn't good. And I would say it's only been in the last year and a half, 2 years, that like we've come back to full appetite, and in addition to that, trying everything again and eating everything again, and eating lots, which I love. Yeah. I mean, as my wallet doesn't love it, but everything, I've got 2 boys that will eat all the things, but it's awesome. I love that, because it was so hard to watch him not be able to eat. And that's what moms and grandmas, we feed you, right? Like, that's what we do. And oh my goodness, that was rough. And so, it brings me joy to watch him smash the wings too today at lunch. I love it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's good food. It's healthy food. Like, he's getting protein in, and it's like, food is nourishment. And I think especially as a competitive athlete and a power lifter, like, you get this new appreciation for food as being fuel for your training, for your performance. And so to see him fueling up with like good food like that after a training session, like,
well, he couldn't wait for that steak. He was all about it.
You can tell he was hungry, man. So that's just it's such a cool thing. It's got to be cool to watch him like nourishing himself.
Yes.
Rather than watching something toxic go into him.
And we talk about it all the time now that he's kind of got a greater understanding. Like, you had these things put in your body, but they needed to be. But now we need to avoid the bad things as often as possible. And I'm not going to be like, you can't have a piece of cake. No, like that's, we're going to live. But, we've talked about it all. You don't need junk drinks. You don't need this and that, because we don't ever want to deal with cancer again. We don't want to deal with that. And then in addition to that, you're never going to vape. You're never going to put bad things in your body on purpose. Why would you ever do that? And he's like, that's dumb. And, and I said, I get it, but people are doing it. So we got to talk about it, because he's like, no, I've already been there and got chemicals put in my body. I don't want to put any bad ones in there again. But, as you get older, I'm like, you want to stay cancer free for the rest of your life. Like, we don't want to have to deal with this again. And, I think he's getting it, because he really does like eat with some thought behind it too, in addition to eating a lot, which is cool.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
And his reference to bulking.
Yeah. He said bulking season.
Bulking season. It's like, he's got it.
I'm pretty sure like that's all day, every day, 365 days a year.
I love that when he said that today. It cracked me up.
He just recently sees some neuropathy, and we talked about this before, in his feet from chemo, and he finally agreed to get dry needled, and it helped. So we were leaving that appointment. He was like, I'm pretty sure some Dairy Queen is in order after that. And I'm like, who am I to say no? Wow. You just got, a bunch of needles stuck in your legs and feet. So yes. But him being willing to do that was a big step for us, because like he's like, I've had enough needles like shoved in my body. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, try it, see if it helps. He has some like lingering issues with that, and I'm hoping this will be a thing that like really kind of helps him out. So
could you explain more of said treatment? I still have issues with neuropathy in my fingers.
So we see a really great physical therapist in our area. His name is Dave Zwack, and he did some dry needling in part of his calf and like around his ankle, and he would be way more technical describing this than me. But Leo has like pronation of his feet, and that all stems back to, he had foot drop and everything from the neuropathy that he had. And we avoided braces, which was good during treatment, but we'll do like KT tape and things like that. But he has like pins and needles feeling like when he's standing for prolonged periods of time, or if he's laying in bed, he'll say, my legs are doing it again. And I'm like, doing what? And he's like, it's really hard to tell you like what they're doing, but my legs are doing it again. Like a electric type feeling, I guess restless leg type feeling or something. But it bothers him the most when he's standing or at rest. And so this was more to like, he was very, very tight on that outside of his ankle because of that pronation. And so that loosened kind of everything up. And that was the first thing he said, my feet feel great like that night. So I was really excited about that, but we're going to keep trying it and see if he gets like some extended relief from it. And so
dry needling is like it's like a westernized form of acupuncture. So like what I get done is like traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture. It's based on like the qi system, if you want to believe in that or not, but it's like they're trying to like attack like, or not attack, but like realign energy channels. It's Chinese like Eastern philosophy, whereas dry needling is more of like a Western physical therapy kind of practice where they're targeting like nerves and muscle pathways. It's the same kind of mindset, I think.
Right.
It's just different approaches to a common end, I think.
Oh.
But yeah, I've gotten a lot of benefit. I've never done dry needling, but I've gotten a lot of benefit out of acupuncture. But honestly, the number one thing that's helped me more than anything else with like my neuropathy and especially like my circulation and my peripheral vasculature is training.
Right.
Like,
well, so when he's moving, he could go run 3 miles. So he runs cross country.
Okay. Yeah.
And he could go run 3 miles and it doesn't bug him. Now, if he's standing still after that, it really bothers him. But while he's in motion, doesn't bug him. So movement is great, and it has proven to help him a lot. Also, strength training, I think, is helping a lot. Now we're just kind of getting to where maybe this will be the thing that kind of like ends it, because he's a golfer, and there's a lot of standing and walking in golf, and he's to the age now where he'll do 18 holes, like in this one of the tours in the summer that they do, and I'm like, that's going to be a struggle because he's got to carry a bag. Well, he can use a push cart, but there's no carts. Like, you got to walk the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we're not worried about running miles, but we're worried about walking a golf course. It's weird how like that kind of stuff pops up here and there. And you wouldn't think that, oh, you're struggling with golf, but you can do this, this, and this. But
yeah. It's like for me with my prosthetic, like I can go run for 6.5 hours straight, but to stand for 3 hours is almost way harder.
Wow.
It's just because it's like movement versus no movement, so I think it's maybe a similar thing to have to do with like the blood flow and things like that in the body.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And there's this other piece of your life too that I know we've talked a lot about today, and definitely want to dive more into it, especially in the future too. But I know something else that you had that later on in Leo's treatment really served as an outlet and something that helped you get through it is you're actually an artist, and you're an art teacher, and you're a very good artist too. We were looking at some of your drawings, and I know you've got your art Instagram if you want to give a shout out to that. But how did you give us a backstory on how you became an artist and how you discovered that talent and how it maybe helped you through some of your journey with Leo and what it's doing for you today?
So my whole life, I've always turned to some type of creative outlet growing up, and knew in high school, like, this is something I want to pursue, art. And if you ask my parents, they'll be like, she wanted to be an artist. And I'm like, I'm going to go to art school, but I also wanted to play softball. So there's not many art schools that have softball team. So I ended up at Ohio Dominican in Columbus, and great art department and great softball team. And when I was at ODU, I did a double major, both in fine art and art education, and didn't want to be an educator. Honestly, did not want to teach kids. The 18-year-old me was like, nope, I do not want to teach kids. I just want to be an artist. And my parents so very kindly persuaded me to do a double major. Get your art education degree. Mom and dads are always right. So I did double major with the intention of just being an artist. And then I got into like student teaching with some wonderful people. And then I'm like, I love this. This is awesome. So my concentration was painting. I'm a painter, and got a job as an elementary art teacher straight out of college, K through 4. Now I'm a high school art teacher. I'm not going back. I love high school art. It's awesome. I loved elementary art too, but art licenses are K-12 in Ohio. So I've been an art teacher for 17 years, and I do my own work still. And my work typically, before Leo got sick, was large acrylic paintings, very colorful, big, like 3 foot by 3 foot. I like to paint in squares. And
love it. Big
work that like I wouldn't sign because I could flip it around at the end and say, where's the top? I don't know yet. And then sign it when
that's so cool.
So like all those big florals that you were looking at earlier, those didn't have an actual top or bottom until like they were done. And that's how I worked. And I love that as my medium of choice. I mean, I've done printmaking, some other things too, and like mixed media work, but I never loved colored pencil. It was not my favorite thing. And when Leo got sick, I stopped making art like completely. And I also had a paint party business that was super, super successful before Leo got sick. I was doing like paint and sips, like go to people's houses, instruct big groups, sometimes 3 times a week. Like it was booming like for a while. And then he got sick. Everything stopped. All of my creative outlets stopped because the world just stopped. And that was fine. And I didn't honestly draw or pick up a pencil or paint for the first year of his treatment. And when he was in one of the roughest parts of his treatment, he went to school and got a school portrait. And we took him in and like snuck him in for his kindergarten picture. He was bald in it, and wore a mask, and then took it off for the picture. And we got out because he was super immunocompromised, and he was homeschooled at that point, homebound instruction. And I got the picture back, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna draw his portrait. Yeah. And I drew it in colored pencil. And after that, I always had a large sketchbook and colored pencils with me, and I could transport those to the hospital. And I started making all these colored pencil drawings, and it became one of my most successful mediums that I work in now, out of necessity, because you can't, take your 4-foot by 4-foot canvas to the hospital room and paint
I don't know. I bet nobody would say anything.
They probably wouldn't. They'd be like, let me get you some paint.
Yep.
Which art therapy. Well, I was gonna say art therapy and music therapy played a critical role in Leo's treatment, and those people are absolutely amazing. And arts and medicine heals people, and it helped me. So that was an outlet that I needed, but I didn't let myself, and I will tell this to like parents and caregivers, like I didn't allow myself to do things that brought me joy because I felt like guilty about that because Leo was losing so much. And it sounds kind of crazy, but it's literally was my thought process. Like looking back, I'm not going to paint. I'm not going to do this. Those are things I love, and he can't do any of the things he loves right now. So I'm going to suffer with him. And the thought is good in your mom brain, but it's not the best way to handle it. So like when I was able to start drawing again, I'm like, oh, I needed this outlet. It was one thing I did. That was one thing I did for myself, because I wouldn't leave him. After the life flight day, I did not leave. I would not go anywhere, and I was okay with that. I felt like I needed to be there, and I at least had that as an outlet. And I love creating. It's part of my life. It's part of who I am. And being a teacher and being an artist and being an art teacher and a female art teacher, I love showing my students that you can do so many disciplines in your life that are totally unrelated. Powerlifter, art teacher, painting floral paintings, and then they're like, you don't look like that in the gym, like you, and you can do all the things. And I feel like the more areas of your life that can be like polar opposites help you become whole as a person, and I can't wait to find out what the next thing is that like I add to my life, because those are the things that make us who we are. And I love creating, and I love watching my students create too, and they deserve to see me create. So I'll have a painting in the corner of the classroom I'm working on that they can see in progress and things like that. And
that's really cool.
That's cool.
So, I love that.
I love that. Like they need to know, like, oh yeah, she actually makes her own artwork too. And, they need to see that. And they also need to know that you don't have to just be an artist. You can be an artist who is a pharmacist, or you can be an artist who is anything else. And they don't have to be exclusive. And I think they need to know that, because a lot of times art gets a bad rap, like that's not going to be a good job and things like that. It doesn't have to be your job, but it can be a supplement to everything else in your life, just like any other endeavor that you want to be good at. So for me, it's always been the foundation of like who I am, and I'm a creative person, and you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it, which I love.
Yeah, well, I mean, creativity is like one of the chief skills you could possibly have, because it's one of those skills that extrapolates to everything. Like you can be creative with your training in powerlifting.
Yes.
You know, if you've got like injuries or setbacks, you can bring that creativity. Like you talked about, you had a torn shoulder at one point and you're coming up with creative ways to train. Like that's using that creative muscle you've built internally to keep moving the needle forward in another area where you don't necessarily think of creativity being a foundational skill.
Right.
So I think you're absolutely right. Like you can be an artist in all sorts of ways, and you can fuel that passion, and it's going to help so many other areas of your life. And you said another thing earlier that I really loved your perspective of, when you were talking about how you didn't let yourself practice art for a while because you felt like you needed to, like, you know, suffer with him. Like you couldn't allow yourself to do something you enjoyed if he was going to be suffering all the time. And I think, I forget specifically how you said it, but I love your perspective in that you talked about how, like, when you brought that back into your life and you had something that you did enjoy, what that shows Leo, what that shows your child, is that you can be going through one of the hardest situations imaginable and still find joy in life.
Yeah.
And I think actually, like, that's a very powerful thing for him to be able to see. And that's going to mean way more to him in the long run.
And I will not sell that work that I did during that time. That's going to be his, because everything I drew during that time were really bright, colorful florals that come out of a dark background and symbolic. Lotuses that grew up through mud. And there was reasoning behind all of it. Not that I sat there and contemplated that, but that's the why. That was why, now that I'm looking at it all, and it radiated, like all of those flowers that you were looking at earlier, like radiated through those dark backgrounds, because that's what Leo did at that time. He radiated with a smile through that darkness, and he was my inspiration, and he is my inspiration for everything that I do. And our oldest as well, Nolan, was 8 years old when Leo was diagnosed. And when Leo was diagnosed, Nolan was drug along through all of that. And so as a brother, he lost, years of experiences too, but he also pushed through it all and was the most wonderful big brother and took care of Leo so hard, and still does, even though they fight like brothers fight. And they were my reason for all of that. And one day I want them to have that, because those drawings are theirs, and they helped me get through it. And yeah, everybody's like, it's all very similar, but they're all different, and they're all very bright images, like pushing through darkness, and that was them. Yeah, it's really cool. I'm somebody who's really drawn to like symbolism of any sort. Like that just always impacts me very powerfully, especially like visual symbolism. And my wife and I are having our first child. Our daughter is due in June, and
there's just been a lot of cool, like really symbolic things that have been happening recently that like that what you just talked about reminded me of. So we've got our nursery done upstairs and it's all ready to go. And it's like a woodland theme, which is what, I think it was my wife's idea, but we both loved it. So we went with it, and we were going through the whole woodland theme, putting up, like decorations and designing the walls and everything. And then when we bought this house, which is actually my grandparents' old house, like I grew up a lot of my life in this house. So it already is symbolic and means a lot to us. When we bought this house, there was, as houses that have been lived in for a long time do, like it had a lot of stuff in it, you know, and there's just like a whole bunch of like heirlooms and things that nobody knew existed, things like that. And there's this painting, and I could show it to you when we're done here. There's this painting that my grandpa painted, and it's kind of a more abstract one, like it's got a lot of funky colors and stuff, but that's who he was. He was colorblind, so he loved things that cool. like had bright, vivid, kind of funky colors that most people may not love, but he loved them. And I always loved his appreciation of those things because it was really unique. And that painting is of a deer like drinking out of a pond with a woodland background.
Very cool.
And we just happened to randomly find that painting. I don't know if anybody knew it existed. When we moved in, we were, sorting through things in the house, and now that painting, my dad built a frame for it. It's hanging up in our daughter's nursery.
That's awesome.
And so it's just so cool. Every time I see that, I just think back, I'm like, I wonder what it would have meant to him if he had known, like when he was painting that,
right?
That was going to hang in his great granddaughter's nursery.
Oh, he'd be so proud.
Like, it's so cool to think about. And so it's got to be cool to think about your art and think about where will this go someday?
Right.
Maybe maybe one of those paintings will hang in your great granddaughter's nursery.
Right.
It's
a
cool.
part of you. I mean, your art is part of who you are. You're putting part of your heart and soul on a canvas when you work, and so it is special. And when you truly love it, it's something you need to do. And I remember that first drawing of Leo with his cute little smooth bald head. I'm like, I need this so badly. And I'm so glad him going to school and getting that picture taken was the reason that I started back doing it again. And the one drawing that was different from all the others, so there was a portrait of him, then a bunch of flowers, and I did rocks that had been kind of carved with water, and I did it in a bunch of funky colors. And I think you looked at that one earlier, and I was like, that's what this journey is. It's persistence. We're carving through this as we go, and it's not doing it immediate, but we're going to get somewhere with it. And that one is super special to me because it's symbolic of like the journey, and it's beautiful. And as much as the journey was tragic, it has become beautiful, and I'm thankful for that, because like healing in so many ways brings that beauty, and I'm sure you feel that like in your own life. Because I think at the beginning you think, man, this is a mess. This is such a mess. Nothing good will ever come out of this. And now looking back, it's like, okay, like here we are, and it's pretty cool to be standing on the other side. And
that's incredible. I love to hear your perspective on that. And we talked about it at lunch today too. It always blows my mind how many powerlifters actually have like an artistic or creative background of some sort.
Yeah.
Like it always surprises me, but it seems to be like more often than not we have that. And so it just makes me think like, what's that like piece of us that like, is it the addictive personality? Is it the caffeine addiction? Is it the like what's that piece of us that makes us tie that creativity with this like all out physical strength? And I think it's maybe that piece of how you talk about it's like it's literally a piece of you, like it's a piece of your soul, like when you get under. And I think this is just something that's not always true of maybe it is to a point in other sports, I don't know, but I think we all feel it the most in powerlifting. It's this piece of when you're under, like today, it happened with me and it happened with Clayton. I was under 385 pounds. He was under 770 pounds. Mm-hmm. And we both almost drop it off our backs. And like, that's weight that could crush you.
Right.
And it's like in that moment when you're under that weight, and every powerlifter knows this, you are under weight that could crush you. And it sounds crazy to most people, but it puts you in this like state of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Where it's like who you are to your deepest core is exposed. Mm-hmm. And everything else in the world disappears. And it's just you and the weight, and you go. Mm-hmm. And it's that, I think, same process maybe of putting a piece of who you are out there, like exposing your soul.
Right.
And there's beauty in that. Mm-hmm. There's beauty in the challenge and the struggle and the strength.
And what you just said is part of the reason why powerlifting, moving heavy weight means so much to me, because you're right, everything goes away at that time. And I always think back to the 1 minute that I would give myself in the corner of the shower, silently sobbing. And I'd say, get up, to myself. And I got up every time. That's where I go when I'm under heavy weight. So when I'm under heavy weight, I'm like, get up. You've done way more. You've gotten up from under way more. And I love that. Like having a good reason to get up, and the rest of it goes away. And you are so right. You nailed it with how you explained it, because it's true. I feel that same way.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself. We got Leo down here. He's joined us to listen in for a second. And Leo, you got to be proud of your mom, man. She's a strong woman. But I love what you said about, like, you've gotten up from worse. Mm-hmm. Is that what goes through your mind when you step up on the platform during competition?
Yes, because I just think, you've done the hard things.
Yeah.
And this is fun. This is easy. Let's go. And everybody gets those butterflies, before a meet or before that first squat. And you get the first one and you're like, okay.
Yeah, if you don't get the butterflies, you're not going heavy enough.
Right. But when I'm actually under a bar, it's not that anymore. That goes away. And it's just, you're going to do it because you've gotten up before. Yeah. And this, like I said, like the mental was harder than the physical. And the physical, it's like, okay, we're going to do it. Yeah.
And it gives you a challenge to face. It gives you something to struggle against that's actually good for you.
Yes.
And that's a good thing to find for anybody in life. It doesn't have to be powerlifting, but you can find that thing, and that's going to be a positive aspect of your life.
It has given me so much discipline, like in my life, that I can apply to so many other things. And I love that. I love the discipline. Like when I get up at 3 a.m., I'm going to make a bed. And then, it's just meal prepping food and having things ready. Not just for me, for everybody in my house. I was never that put together in all of those areas. It was like, okay, we'll run through a drive-through because we're busy today. That's not even a thing anymore, because Sundays, I will prep a massive amount of food for my family, including myself. I'm not going to act like I don't eat a lot of food, because I do, but my boys eat a lot of food and my husband does too. So it's ready to go. It's ready for the week, and we can sit down and enjoy that together when we're not at a baseball field. And if I am at a baseball field, I'm taking my food with me. I've never done that kind of stuff before. And it's like, why not? If I'm going to take a bag of Wendy's with me, why won't I take my own food with me that is so much more wholesome and going to fuel what I'm trying to do? And so that's what I do now. And it's just habitual routine, and I enjoy it. I actually like meal prepping. I know some people hate it, so unpopular opinion, but I like it. And I feel so accomplished when I'm done with it too. I'm like, look at what this is ready to go. And everybody, not just me, it's for everybody in my house. And so that discipline that has like trickled over into all areas of my life. That's just one small example of it. I love that. And it only comes from pursuing something. And I don't care. It doesn't have to be powerlifting, but, pursuing this and trying to be the greatest version of myself I can be in this sport has allowed me to be better in every area of my life. And I'm thankful for that.
No, I love that. And I think it just fits everything we've talked about today. Finding a passion and purpose for your life will ignite a fire within you that will spread to every other area of your life. And it will allow you to pursue disciplines and practices that will set you up for more and more success in every area of your life. Yes. And while like finding that passion and purpose is not necessarily easy, it is one of those things it's not easy, but it's simple. And the simplicity comes in that you just start. Like Natalie said, you chase something that may not be the thing, but you'll learn something along the way. Mm-hmm. You pivot and go in a different direction, go in a different direction. It's taken us 3.5, 4 years of kind of tinkering around to really find our direction, our purpose, and where we're going with this business. And that's okay, because every step along the way was learning and growth and slowly dialing it into the track that we're on now. And man, I feel like we could sit here and chat all day, and we could learn so much from you. And I think we'll definitely have to do a part 2 and a part 3 and keep having you back to learn more and more, because I know, and I know Austin would agree, this has been one of the most impactful episodes we've ever done. So I truly appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. It was an honor to be here, and thank you for providing a platform for what people need to hear. And I know there's so many parents that just need to hear some encouragement, because you're going to get through it. Yeah. And you're going to come out the other side stronger. I know it doesn't seem that way at the beginning, but you will. You will. And you just stay the course, because you will. And you are providing such inspiration for kids, and that means more than I can ever express. So thank you for that.
Well, yeah, it's absolutely our honor, and it means everything to us. It's why we do what we do. So yeah, thank you again, Natalie. Austin, do you have anything else?
No, this was, like he said, an absolutely fantastic experience. So thank you very much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you so much.
There's one final thing I've got to ask you, and I've asked this question before to different people in the podcast, and it's always so impactful, like, to hear the responses. But Leo popped down here a little bit ago just to, I think, check in, and see how things were going. And I saw the look in your eyes when you looked at him. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I can't fully understand the emotion, until when our daughter's born in June, but it was a look of pride and of love and of joy.
Yes.
If you could leave Leo with something that you wanted him to just know, maybe he hears it in a few weeks when this comes out, maybe he hears it a month from now, or maybe he hears it 10 years from now, what would you leave him with?
I would tell him that he is the strongest person I know in life, and that he was made for great things, and he has shown that he was made for great things, and that his fire and tenacity that he brings to everything that he does, and his stubbornness and his persistence will take him to places that are limitless. And I want him to know that being his mother is and has been the greatest honor of my life. And it has been something that is just, I don't even deserve it, because he is so great. And I hope that he understands how very proud I am of the young man that he has become, and the man that I know that he will be. And I'm so excited to see what he does with this beautiful gift of life that God's given him.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing. And I'm sure that Leo would say that he's learned a lot of that from you as well.
Thank you.
Because you are an incredibly strong woman, both physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And I think you serve as the best example we could ever show to people that are battling through the same things today that you battled through years ago.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we're going to put it on our calendar for June 9th, because
Let's go. That's awesome.
that's a big day.
That is a big day. We're going to be having a party, because that's 5 years.
Yeah. 5 years. That's the milestone for
Survivorship.
Survivorship. And his whole life lays ahead of him. So.
Amazing.
Natalie, thank you again for coming on today. And normally we do like an outro where we ask, thank people for listening, and ask them to subscribe and like the posts and comment and all of the things that help the podcast. But today we're just going to skip that today. And the only thing I want to ask for you guys listening is to please share this episode with someone you know. Because this episode has so much impact and so much power behind it, that all we want to ask of you today is to share this with somebody, so that this message can reach somebody who needs to hear it. Natalie, if people want to learn more about who you are and what you're doing in life, all of your beautiful art and your incredible strength, where can they find you online?
I'm on Instagram at Natalie Zambori, and I have Natalie Zambori Art also on Instagram.
And Zambori is Zambori, correct?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Austin, brother, where can they find you?
Oh, Austin_strength.
Yep. And we are at impossible.performance. Guys, thank you as always for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. I know you're going to get a lot out of it. And like we say, please share it with somebody you know it'll help, because there's so much beautiful strength and wisdom in this episode that it undoubtedly anybody is going to learn from it. And at Impossible Performance, we are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you guys for listening. And as always, be impossible.